Just below that we have a very nice, beautifully preserved oak wainscot chair, and that would date about. As we look into the fireplace, we can see a rather nice pot jack with the pot hanging from it, and to the right of that an oak joint stool, about 1620. And notice then there's the settle with the curtain over the back of it to stop drafts, which would have been plentiful in those days in this type of house. We'll now walk out of the living room toward the passageway through a little corridor, and we notice here another beautiful piece of furniture, an Arcadian 3-panel carved oak settle. Again, a 17th century piece, exact date undetermined, but notice all the fine carving. And in the passageway here we just have a few interesting looking farming implements hanging on the wall. At one time this room was used as an entranceway. It isn't now, the shop is used as the entrance. Here we have a famous view of Anne Hathaway's cottage and many picture postcards, the fireplace. In this case, of course, it's not the original stone, this is 2J stone or Australia stone. As we pan across the fireplace there, we come to a chair, an unusual looking chair. It's one that grandfather would have been happy to sit there and sit in front of the fire. But it's a porter's or a grandfather chair, and that's dated round about 1600. Over here in the corner of the kitchen, we've got an ark. Very interesting piece of furniture. It's actually used for storing bread. The lid is so designed that when turned upside down can be used as a giant mixing bowl. You'll notice the pegs in the 4 corners there, double pegs on each of those mortise and tenons. The pegs are removed and the whole thing can be dismantled, so it can be carried around very conveniently. Found in manor houses and large homes and farmhouses. And the date of this particular one is circa 1610. Up against the wall over here we've got a fine pair of 17th century inlaid and carved oak chairs. Now panning across the centre of the room, the centre of the kitchen, we have a fine example of an oak gate-leg table, dated about 1650. Notice the leather pitcher on the table and a wooden bowl. And over here near the fireplace, we've got a very rare specimen here, an oak barrel-back 17th century settle. Perhaps a little bit uncomfortable, but 2 or 3 of those around the fire would be very cosy indeed. As we walk into the end bedroom, on the bed there's a beautiful example of Jacobean crewel work. That needlework that's so fine in detail that's been beautifully restored. Just looking above the bed, there's a very fine example of an Elizabethan needlework panel showing animals. It's mounted on a velvet backboard, and that dates back to the 16th century. In about 1620 this fine oak joint stool was made. As we pan to the right, a very nice example of an oak wainscot chair dated about 1610. And to the right of that again, with a Bellarmine jar on top, an oak chest on a stand, 17th century. On the table over there, a lady's gilt mirror on a stand, and that dates back to the 17th century on an oak side table, about 1670. About 1620, this very fine panelled coffer was made, again in oak. Notice the amount of workmanship in those panels there. But as we swing round further in, notice this beautifully carved oak settle, a very fine example there, and all the workmanship that's gone into that. Again, 17th century. Here in the passageway as we walk out of the bedroom, but a fine example of some of the first portable furniture, an oak cricket table. This was actually used to take refreshments out in the time of Henry VIII, when they were playing sport, perhaps on the village green or the lawn. And to the right of that, an example of an oak dining chair, a 17th century Lancashire. And as we walk further through the passageway, we see a fine example. If you notice, the edges are carved there of a 7th-century plank chest. On this Gothic oak bed, a very fine example of some cool work. The original backing had deteriorated and it was restored, quite faithfully restored, in England, 1970. As we pan around, there's a fine carved oak chair, 17th century. An oak joint stool. An oak joint stool, about 1620. And to its left, another fine coffer. Bed.